Hello, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to be making gazpacho. Gazpacho is a Mexican dish and it is basically cold vegetable soup. Before you decide that cold vegetable soup sounds disgusting, I thought that too the first time I heard of it, but actually it's really good. You mix a lot of fresh, seasonal, summer vegetables together in the blender, and then you chill it in the refrigerator, and you can serve it with either sour cream on top, or if you want it to be a little more healthy, you can serve it with a dollop of Greek yogurt on top. So we're going to start with our vegetables. I've already washed all of them. Here's what we're using. We are using 2 cups of cucumbers, 2 cups of bell peppers, 2 cups of tomato, and half a cup of onion. So my recipe calls for you to peel and dice the cucumbers. I am going to dice them, but I'm not going to peel them, because if you have the usual type of cucumber that has sort of a tough skin, you probably do want to peel them. Otherwise, it will give the gazpacho kind of a bitter flavor. But if you have a thin-skinned type cucumber, like these pickling cucumbers that I'm using, or if you buy piccolinos, that's a really thin-skinned cucumber, I don't really think that you need to peel them. Also, the bell peppers, if you can find the full-size bell peppers, that's really a lot easier. It's a bit of a pain to chop all these little ones up, but that's all I could find at the store. And the tomatoes I'm using, as you can see, orange tomatoes today. They're slightly less acidic than the red tomatoes, and the reason I picked that is because a lot of the other ingredients that I'm going to be using, like for example the red wine vinegar, are kind of acidic, so I just want to make it a little bit lower acid. But you can use whatever kind of tomatoes that you want. And finally, it does call for red onions, which is what I usually use, but all I could find at the market last week were green onions, also known as scallions, so you can really use whatever kind of onion you want. Okay, let's start chopping. Let me try and give you a bit of a better view. As we finish chopping our vegetables, we're going to be putting them in this big bowl. And also, a lot of these ingredients are kind of staining, so I'm going to put my apron on. And I haven't worn this for a while, and I don't know if it has fuzzies on it, so I'm just going to do the sticky roller thing. I usually do the sticky roller before I cook anything that I might be sharing with other people, just because I don't want to risk getting any hair or, in anything by accident. That's also the reason why I usually put my hair up before cooking. Okay, back to chopping. Okay, so I already have 2 cups, so I'll just save these for later. Okay, let's move on to our onions. I put all the vegetable scraps in the compost, which I'll take out later. These are starting to get a little bit wilty on the end, so I'm just going to chop off the most wilted parts. Some people will only eat the white part or light green part, but really you can eat the whole thing. And since we're going to be grinding it up anyway, I'm just going to include the green tops as long as they aren't wilted. Okay, so the easiest way is just to line up all the bottoms and then just chop them all off at once. Alright, and then I find it's easier for chopping if I take half of them and flip them so that half are facing this way and half are facing this way. It just sort of makes it easier for chopping because this part can be a little bit harder to get through with a knife. So when they're combined with white parts, it makes it a little easier to get through all the green parts. And we don't have to go super fine with this because it's all going in the blender anyway. When you start to get kind of close to your hand, make sure that you're curling your fingers like this. Sorry, I'm left-handed, but it would look like this. Because that way, if you get too close, you won't accidentally chop your finger. You might just kind of brush your knuckles a little bit, but it's safer that way. You know what? I forgot to measure those too. Okay, so that was probably about a half cup. I'm going to save all these extra vegetables to put on salads later. So the extras can just go in here. Because it's only calling for a half cup of the onions. And these I need to eat kind of soon because I already washed them, so they're going to go bad faster. Alright, save all those for later. Alright, and now we need to chop up 2 cups of tomato. I'm going to take a quick break to wash my tomatoes because I didn't do that earlier. Let me just see if there's any that look more ripe than others. Okay, this one's getting a bit wrinkly, so we'll do him first. That one looks a little tiny bit bruised on top. Okay, I think those are all the ones that are the most ripe. In case you don't know, you should always leave your tomatoes out, like I had mine out on the counter or wherever. Just don't put them in the refrigerator. It's not good for the flavor. They're going to taste a lot better if you leave them out and do not refrigerate them. Because remember, tomatoes are hot weather crops. They come from tropical areas. They're not used to being cold. So if they get cold, it's not going to be good for the flavor. Alright, let's wash these and then come right back. Okay. I like to just do kind of a little V-shaped cut to get the stem out. Okay, and this one's extra. Alright, I have some extra. I'm just gonna throw those in. I don't feel like trying to save those for later. Okay. Alright, so now we have all our vegetables in here. We have our cucumber, peppers, tomatoes, onion. Now we're going to add our liquid ingredients. So, okay, earlier I forgot to introduce you to our other ingredients today. Besides the red wine vinegar, I did mention that earlier. We're going to also use olive oil. And the recipe does call for tomato juice. I'm using the Spicy Hot V8 instead. Partly just because that way if I have any leftovers, I can drink it. I don't really care to drink straight tomato juice, but I do like to drink Spicy Hot V8. So I'm going to get that instead so I can drink the leftovers. And also the recipe does call for 2 dashes of Tabasco sauce. That's not really something that I keep on hand, so the spiciness of the V8 is going to make up for the Tabasco sauce that I'm not using today. Okay, and then finally another ingredient is cilantro. I usually just leave this out because I don't normally have it, but this year I am growing cilantro in my garden, so I have some. Cilantro is kind of one of those things that I think you either love it or you hate it. So give it a try, but if you don't like it, there's no reason to use it if you don't like it. Although if you have eaten salsa, you've probably eaten cilantro without even realizing it, because it's in most salsa recipes. So I'm just snipping off the leaves here. Most of these I'm going to be blending up in the blender with the other vegetables, but I might save a few of these little leaflets to put on top of the soup and the Greek yogurt as decoration. Alright, let's save a few of the prettiest ones. Okay, and the rest of these are going to go in with the vegetables. Okay, it calls for 2 cups of tomato juice. Alright, you really should shake this before you use it, but it's a little hard to shake it when it's completely full. So I poured out a little and now I'm going to shake it. Okay, and now we need a 1/2 cup of the red wine vinegar and a 1/3 cup of the olive oil. Oh, by the way, if you're not familiar with red wine vinegar and you're concerned, this is not wine. It's not an alcoholic product at all. It's just made from red wine. Alright, and finally a 1/3 cup of the olive oil. Okay. Alright, now we're going to mix all of that together in our bowl, and then we're going to start blending it up in our blender. And we are going to have to do that in batches in the blender because this is way too much to all fit in my blender at once. If you have some kind of gigantic industrial blender, you could probably do it all at once. Okay, and you can see how pretty all the colors are. Let's rinse off our cutting board real quick. You don't really need to use soap to wash your cutting board. I usually just splash some water on it. You don't ever want to soak it in water either because that can ruin the wood. Every once in a while, you should give it a good scrub down and then rub some oil into it to keep it in good condition. But most of the time, you can just rinse it off. Okay, let's get out our blendy. And we're going to get another large container with a lid that the finished gazpacho can go inside. and make sure you get some liquid in each scoop because blenders do not like to blend if they don't have enough liquid in there. Okay, and I just remembered that this recipe does also call for pepper, so we'll put in a bit of pepper. It does also call for salt, but I really don't think you need salt because V8 is already quite salty. So, I mean, if you want extra salt, you can add it, but you're probably good if you just have the V8. Alright, and then when you're blending, you can choose if you want to blend it just a little bit and still have some hunks of vegetables floating around in there, or if you want it to be really, really smooth, like a usual tomato soup kind of smooth. It's up to you. Alright, so there's our lovely gazpacho. Sorry it looks so strange. It's because I used the yellow orange tomatoes. Normally it looks more red than this, but it's still going to taste really good. Sometimes, I think I've done this in the past, is blend up most of it really, really well and then do the last batch of it not as smooth, so there's at least some little hunks of vegetables in it still. Oh, by the way, if you're not familiar with using a blender, I have said this before in other videos, but you just want to make sure that your bottom is screwed on tightly, and then when you set it into the base, turn it until it's tight. You want to turn it the same direction that this is screwed, because if you turned it this way, you'd actually be loosening the bottom. So turn it the same way that the bottom is screwed on until it doesn't turn anymore. Then you know it's locked onto the bottom. At least that's how mine works. Okay, so our gazpacho is done. I don't want to waste any. Okay, so let's put this in a bowl and see how it looks. Okay, and this is another optional ingredient. I like to put plain Greek yogurt on top of my gazpacho. You can also do sour cream. Okay, and here's some of those leaves that I saved earlier. I'm going to put those on top. Alright, and alright, you can see how pretty that looks. It's a really nice to serve for company. It keeps in the refrigerator for, I would say, maybe like 5 days to a week. Normally you would want to put this in the refrigerator and chill it for at least 1 hour before serving it. You can also freeze it if you have too much to finish. I don't think it tastes as good if you freeze it and then thaw it again, so I would try to eat it all while it's still fresh. Enjoy. Thanks for joining us in the kitchen today, and we'll see you again next week. Bye!